We got a new series here at PFF called PFF Film School. We got Coach Dalton Wasserman here to break it down for us. Dalton, we're going to break down personnel groupings today. And, all the time people hear 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 32 personnel. What does that exactly mean?
So what you're looking at is just, look, before the snap, before the play, before the X's and O's, anything else, teams need to know what personnel groupings are out there, especially a defense knowing what the offense has out there, because they got to know how to respond with their defensive personnel, right? So it all starts before we even get to the snap or anything fun or X's and O or any of that. You got to know which 11 players are on the field, right? And there's ways to categorize these things when it comes to how many receivers, how many tight ends, how many running backs are out there. That's what really dictates it first. And then you get into formation and motions and then the play itself and everything like that. So what we're going to go over first is how to structure this and how it's talked about. You just mentioned something like 11 or 12 or 10 or 22 or, just how this is defined and how teams stay organized when it comes to knowing what personnel group they want to have out there and what works for their offense, right? So the first thing you need to know, easy thing, 2-number system, okay? If it's 10, 12, 11, anything up to 50, right? It could be that. The first number is the number of running backs or fullbacks you have on a field. The second number is the number of tight ends, and then it's implied with the remaining out of 5, right? Because you have 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback taking up 6 of the 11 spots. So whatever's remaining that isn't mentioned within the package, that's how many wide receivers are out there. So you see at the bottom here, 12 personnel, 1 running back, that's the first number, 2 tight ends is the second number, and then implied that 2 wide receivers are on the field, right? So when you go to all the different combinations of what you can have here, I organize this by tight end because, okay, out here, everything with no tight ends, right? So that's the number of backs you could have on the field with no tight ends. Again, the number of receivers implied. 1 tight end in this column, we'll get into that in a second. 2 tight ends as well. We got a lot of common things in there. And then when you're getting really heavy with a lot of tight ends, a lot of times a lot of goal line stuff, 3, 4, and even 5 tight ends if you're crazy enough to do it, you can do that, right? You're fitting 11 guys on the field. This is the combination that you're doing it with. But I want to talk for the most part, we're going to get into some weird ones at the end, but for the most part about this box right in the center here, Max. So these 2 in the green, 11 personnel, 1 back and 1 tight end, and 1 back and 2 tight ends, 11 and 12 personnel. 85% of plays in the NFL last season run out of those 2 packages. I add in 21, 2 backs and 1 tight end, and 22, 2 backs and 2 tight ends. Those 4 take up 94% of NFL plays last season, right? So that's why I want to go over those as the main ones, right? So, and then we're going to get into some other funky ones. So let's start out at 11, okay? 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. Here we go. 1 back, 1 tight end. 1 here. 1 here, and then it's implied on the outside that we have 3 wide receivers, right? This has become the most common way to play football at the higher levels now. Why? Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the box. I know we have this guy floating here, but he's a defensive back, so that's a slot receiver. And what you're doing, any which way that you go about it, in any personnel package, the first thing that you want is, especially when you're running the football, you want the numbers to be even, right? So you're talking about 6 blockers up front for the offense, and if I'm taking out this as a defensive back down here, number 20, we've got, again, the 6. So 6 on 6, that's what you want as an offense, and it's created more space than it used to, because it used to be that teams would get real heavy with tight ends and they would work 8 on 8, 9 on 9 even in the box, and it doesn't create a lot of space. There's a lot of good matchups, the numbers might be even, but there's also more chances for failure. So when you're working 6 on 6 like the Rams are here, we're not going to run through the whole play, but what you see on a play like this is they're just going to run their usual scheme right up in here. We're going to seal this. We're going to get to the linebacker. We're going to seal this out. And you essentially just have even numbers either to one side or even both sides of the formation, center getting up on a linebacker. You can see where we still have the ability to run the ball even though we have 3 receivers out there. But because we have 3 receivers out there, there's enough of a passing threat where we can get 5 defensive backs and things are a little smaller for the defense, right? Go to the next one. Same idea. Now, I did the Rams here for the 11 personnel because Sean McVay is the master of it. And why is that? He knows what he wants in his personnel. He knows how to use it. So, again, 1 tight end here, obviously 1 back in the backfield. Now, if you have the big advantage is that if you have receivers that can block, this is Cooper Kupp, this is Puka Nacua. These guys are 2 of the best blocking receivers in the NFL. When you have that, you can start getting outside with the run game too. And what I like about this is now, this isn't 6 in the box for the defense here. This is 7. Look, we got 5 defensive linemen. and we got 2 linebackers here. That's seven guys in the front when you're talking about D-line and linebackers, and yet, because we have receivers that can block, you still have a numbers advantage, especially to this side. So you still get the run game going, even though you have a lighter set, you have 3 wide receivers on the field. This is what teams have been doing now to take advantage of lighter personnel. And even if if you want to go heavy, we'll find a way to get outside and use our athletes, right? So 11 personnel gives you so many options, and it's really something that's come along in the last decade and a half when you talk about, we get all the passing threats that we want on the field, and that we still find ways to run the ball. Then you talk about, you get another team that comes out. Again, 7 in the box now, 5 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and if you're gonna match us up with, this is really a linebacker playing defensive end, if you're gonna match us up with 3 linebackers when we have 3 wide receivers, somebody's gonna come open. So similar set, and you get play action here, and you got Matt Stafford back here dropping back, then you get a deep post, and you isolate one of the best receivers in football on a one-on-one out here. These are just the types of things that can happen when you have 3 wide receivers on a field. And you're talking about, again, a defense is going to dictate who they have on the field based on 2 things. 1, the personnel, first of all. And 2, again, the rhythm of the game. If they're running the ball on you with 3 receivers on the field, well, you have to put extra run defenders out there. This is how offenses start to manipulate defenses based on just personnel groupings before they even get to any play calls.
So that's the 11 personnel right there. 1 running back and 1 tight end in the field. Dalton, what about 12 personnel when there's 1 running back and 2 tight ends on the field?
So nobody better at it than the Baltimore Ravens, right? They've become famous for this. They've stacked their tight end room. So that's where we're going to go with it. Okay, so again, you're talking about now 1 back, all right, 2 tight ends. Here's Mark Andrews, here's Isaiah Likely, and 2 receivers out wide, obviously. So what this does, especially when you have these 2 freaks in the backfield like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, but for any team, really, what it does is it gives, the defense has to make a decision, right? There's 2 tight ends, there's 7 on the line of scrimmage, so they have to load up to stop the run, but also we know there's outside threats. These 2 are receiving threats. When you have really good tight ends, it makes it even harder for a defense. And the problem for the Bills here, this is a big matchup problem when they're playing the Ravens, is, again, they're in a nickel personnel. They only have 6 players you would consider front 7 guys, right? You're talking about 4 D linemen. Here's the 2 linebackers here. This is a weak side linebacker here, but that's actually a slot corner. That's Taron Johnson, who's 210 pounds, and this is a safety coming down. So even though there is 8 on 7 here, there's 2 reasons the Ravens still have an advantage when you talk about the numbers, They're just going to run a zone play right off this way. That's simple. They're going to leave this guy unblocked. So it's not 8 on 7 anymore. Now it's 7 on 7. We're even. And when you talk about 2 of those matchups being a tight end on a DB that's a lot smaller than him, and then this tight end getting up on a safety up here, you're still talking about having an advantage. You're heavy enough to be able to run the ball, and yet these 2 tight ends are athletic enough that they're still receiving threats. This is what makes a team like the Ravens with 2 great tight ends so hard to defend, is they can do it either way. Let's go to the next one. Again, you're going to see it. We got a motion here. Here's 1 wide receiver, but 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. Here's 1 here. He's just standing up, but he's still a tight end. And obviously the 1 back. That's what makes it 12. Now, something the Ravens are really good at. You see this big pocket of space here? What happens is when you have 2 tight ends who are split from each other in the formation, the defense has to pick a strength, right? And in this case, with Andrews being on this side, they've gone strong left. You can see with their defensive line, 3 technique in the B gap here, 1 technique in the A gap there. Then you have to set the edge out here with Alex Highsmith. There's so much space on the weak side that this balance and having a good blocker on both sides of the offensive line gives you the ability to run it both ways. That's exactly what happens here. Run a little zone play right out here. Eventually this all seals and it's cut up right in this bubble. So you're just talking about, again, having balance. Generally in 12 personnel, the run pass split is just about 50-50, right? And it's hard because you go, they have 2 tight ends. How do we respond to it? Do we get big? If we get big, do they throw it over our heads? Do we get small because they can throw? Then they just run it down your throat. This is the problem when there's 2 tight ends. Last one here, again, split. Andrews is split just a couple yards into the slot there. But again, 2 tight ends. 1 back, and you're going to get play action. And now what you're seeing here with the Raiders here, you want to get heavy with them. Here's 5 on the line. Here's 2 more. There's 7 in the box now. This is so often how football is dictated now. It used to be whether there was 7 or 8 in the box. Now it's whether there's 6 or 7. So now that there's 7, now you have a perfect time for play action. Jackson's going to boot out here. Likely's down here. And then you open things up on this second level here for Zay Flowers where this ball goes eventually. But that's just what you're talking about when you talk about Personnel groupings dictating defensive fronts. That's all it is. They have 7, we're going to throw it over them. They have 6 like the previous plays, let's just go right at them.
So as Dalton just said, 11 personnel and 12 personnel are the most popular packages in the NFL today. But Dalton, fullbacks are still people too. There still is 21 and 22 personnel out there, 2 running backs on the field, or a running back and a fullback on the field, I should say. Break down those and kind of the advantages of running that kind of offense.
So nobody loves the 21, nobody loves the fullback more than Sean Payton. So we're going to show some slides from the Denver Broncos last year. And look, what it gives you, okay, the difference with 21 and 12. So we've got 1 tight end now, and we've got obviously my tailback, and then we've got the fullback generally as the second guy. There's other sets where if you have 2 really good backs, like he used to do it, I'll show it later with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. There's times when, okay, you can put 2 skilled running backs back there, but if you have this fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, this is Michael Burton right here for the Broncos, Patrick Ricard for the Ravens, right? It's still an advantage. It's kind of that movable chess piece that we're not used to anymore from the backfield, right? But all you're talking about, look, this is old school football. All we're going to do, we're going to seal this right down in here. We're going to run something called just ISO, or some call it lead, Max. And all it's going to be is we're just going to get right down in here. He's going to get up to this linebacker. And all you're doing is the fullback and Demario Davis are just going to meet right in the hole. Old school football right there. Whoever wins that battle, all the back's job is to follow the fullback and get right through. He's going to make a cutback right in there. But the idea is with that fullback in the backfield, he's got to have similar vision to the running back to be able to get a lead blocker. It's a little more controllable because let's say he's a tight end right here. I got to run a different scheme instead of just getting right up inside. So the fullback is still really, really helpful when it comes to running between the tackles, and then you can still get some play action things going with him out of the backfield. Let's do another one here. That was one to the strong side, okay? We're running ISO, lead, whatever you want to call it. This one is going to be a run to the weak side. Am I capable of running to the weak side away from my fullback? We can do that, obviously. That's why Sean Payton's a Super Bowl winning coach, right? So we're going to go to the weak side now. We're going to run this little zone play to the weak side. And what the fullback's going to do instead here, because it's all about how are you getting to the second level, right? The previous play, we had the fullback do it himself. This play, we'll go to the weak side because we have all this space, and this left guard is going to do it, and the fullback's going to kind of insert on the backside hoping to get to this linebacker, right? Good teams that can run the ball, like good running teams, they block the first level. Great running teams, they find a way to block the second level. There's creative ways you can do it, and then you can see the bubble right in here that happens for the tailback there. So when you have that fullback, you have some flexibility. Okay, let's sneak him through the line of scrimmage and do it that way. Now, you're looking to throw the football. Okay, now look at the Jets here, okay? Still kind of, is there 3 linebackers? There's 3 linebackers out here, 1, 2, 3. Same thing, 21 personnel, 1 back, 2 back. Tight end here. Now we got 8 in the box, basically, right? When you're talking about, okay, here's 3 linebackers plus my strong safety. They're really sold out to stop the run. What ends up happening? We get here with play action. Bo Nix is going to drop and roll, and you sneak your best receiver right behind that second level, right? So there's still ways with a fullback on the field that you can succeed both in the pass game and the run game. You want to add another tight end to the picture now?
Let's do it, 22.
We saw John Harbaugh earlier. We're going to go with Jim Harbaugh now. We're used to it. San Francisco, Stanford, Michigan, now with the Chargers.
Old school football.
Jim Harbaugh never changes. This is big boy football right here, right? Look at all this. We've got 2 tight ends right here. We got a fullback that used to play defensive tackle there. That just sounds like Jim Harbaugh. We got a big 215-pound back here. Okay, so now you're looking at this now. This is the entire defense aside from one corner. There's 10 guys in the box here. Is he scared of it at all? No. And to be honest with you, this isn't anything fancy. This is just, hey, we're going to line up our battering ram, and you're going to line up yours, and we're going to get out here, and actually we're going to get around the corner. So we're going to seal, and some of the creative things you can do, you can pull this guard out and see where we can go. And what ends up happening, even though you're this heavy and you have all these guys in the box, that's still a safety. And what's going to end up happening is I've got a big 300-pound fullback that's going to pancake this safety, and we're going to get out here and turn the corner, right? So it's not just about running right down the pipe into the teeth of this. I'm not going to do that. But the idea is, look, sometimes some coaches, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, even John Harbaugh at times, they still want to just line up and run the football and kick your ass right up front. That's all they want to do is physically impose their will. Next one, same thing here. Now we're going to get both of these tight ends on the same side. Here's my 2 tight ends. Here's my big fullback that used to play D tackle. Obviously, there's my second back. That's what makes it 22, right? Same idea. We're just going to, as we had before, we're just going to get right in here. We're just going to mow everything down in here. You want to run between the tackles? We're going to send my big fullback right through the hole on a linebacker, and that's what we're going to do. And you know what? We may only get 5 yards out of it, but we're going to make a statement. And then eventually you do that enough times. And again, this is heavy. Look at this. We've got 8 in the box, 5 up front, 3 right here, plus Pat Surtain down here. I'm hoping he doesn't have to help out, I'm sure. But you got all those guys in the box, and you're trying to match it up. So really, you're not worried about the corner here. It's not a guy you account for when you're putting together run fits. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 9 blockers. So even if you have to account for Surtain, it's 9 on 9. When it's even, hat on hat, right? That's the old phrase. That's how you want to take advantage of a defense, right? You have a hat on a hat here, and if Surtain is a corner and he doesn't feel like it, well, you know, and this is a safety also right here. If either of these two guys don't want to hit, all of a sudden you're talking about 9 on 8 or 9 on 7. This is what you do to create numbers and really start mowing teams down up front.
Probably 8 on 7 because you don't want Justin Herbert blocking out there.
No, well, certainly, but he's actually the 10th guy. You had,
oh, true, yeah.
You've got 5. Well, I guess you're right, 8 on 7. Sorry, because you've got the tailback also. But either way, 8 on 8 is fine too, because again, you're not accounting for a corner. You don't account for Pat Surtain out there. And then this is a play we actually had in a previous breakdown of Justin Herbert. Again, 22 personnel. Eventually, you have to be able to throw the football, right? Here's my 2 tight ends. Here's my big fullback. Here's my tailback. It sure looks like we're running the ball again, doesn't it? Nope. What's going to happen? We're going to sneak this guy out to the corner. We're going to get play action going. Justin Herbert's going to make a big-time throw out here. And again, look at how stacked this box is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus a corner out on this side. But you just, when everybody starts creeping up, look at this. Look how many guys are within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. Just about the whole team, right? Gives you a lot of space to work with to throw the football as well.
So I believe you said 94% of plays last year came from 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, and 22 personnel. What about the remaining 6% of plays that we saw last year?
Well, it's a handful of things. I mean, teams are all a little bit different. It's a little situational. Let's get the Dallas Cowboys going here. 10 personnel, 1 back. We actually have no tight ends on the field, which means we have 4 wide receivers. Used in college more so nowadays than the NFL.
Yeah,
there's some teams that base their entire offense out of this in college. But situationally, 3rd and long, or if you're in a 2-minute drill, you want 4 receivers out there. Here we go, and you can get some extra speed on the field, right? So that's one way. It's not used as much in the NFL as it used to be, but you can get 4 receivers out there. One of my favorite ones I mentioned earlier, here's 20 personnel. Let's get 2 backs out of here. Something I really liked that Sean Payton used to do with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. Yeah, they are both in the backfield. Let's have some fun. What you look, if out of your 5 best players, 2 of them are running backs, put them both out there, and it helps to have a guy like Kamara who so often he would line up all around the formation. So it's kind of weird when, as a defense, you're preparing like it's 2 backs, and how do you handle that? And then there are 2 really skilled backs, especially Kamara as a receiver, and this play actually ends up being Ingram leading, and we got a little slip screen going here to Kamara with the whole line getting out, so you've kind of got a screen with a lead blocker and a capable one in Ingram. If 2 of your best players, I'm surprised the Lions actually don't do this more with Gibbs and Montgomery. That would be a lot of fun. But something Sean Payton likes to do if two of your best players are running backs, throw them out there. Why not? 13. You want to know why Saquon Barkley had so much fun last year closing out games? Remember all those stats about the 4th quarter and he's setting records for big runs in the 4th quarter? Well, it's because Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni were putting 3 tight ends out here in front of him, right? 13 personnel, there's 3 tight ends, and when the one is Saquon Barkley, you're living right. If you remember, I won't play the whole thing, but this is the 72-yard run in the 4th quarter in the first game against the Rams that he was setting records with. Boom, we're washing all this down. We got capable tight ends who can block. We're getting right in here with this. And then you got big Mekhi Becton pulling around, and you got another tight end pulling around for a counter, and Saquon goes untouched 72 yards, right? So when you're closing out a game, or if you're in short yardage or a goal line situation, hell, put 3 tight ends on the field. You got them on the roster. Why not? And you got, 1,500 pounds of man, probably more than that, probably close to 2,000 pounds of man up here, right? So, I mean, that really helps, especially Saquon Barkley's hard enough to tackle. When you got to get through 8 guys to do it, that's tough. Let's get a little heavier even. Goal line now. 23. Kyle Juszczyk, Jordan Mason, 3 tight ends. Some coaches will even use an extra offensive lineman. And the funniest part about this is actually just a quarterback sneak that scores. But this is the idea is, look, 23 personnel, 2 backs, 3 tight ends. We're getting heavy. We're down on the 2-yard line. We're trying to make things happen. And then my favorite one, an ode to Coach Fab down in St. Pete, Max, we used to call this Eagle. Not used too often. You've seen your Penn State Nittany Lions use this a little bit, right? Eagle, 32 personnel, 1, 2, 3 backs. Helps that this one's a 300-pound fullback, 2 tight ends. And look,
You don't know who's getting the handoff either.
You don't know who's getting the handoff, and honestly, this is just old school football. This is just about who's bigger, who's stronger, who wants it more, right? Honestly, Max, when we ran this down in St. Pete, we had 4 plays. We had a quarterback sneak, we had a belly to this middle guy, we had a lead with both these guys leading. With one of the wings, we could do it either way. And we had 1 play action pass where we'd sprint out and get to this back corner. That's all you had is 4 plays. And it's honestly, you get down to the 2-yard line in 32 personnel and you just ask who wants it more. So the heavier and heavier things get, obviously it looks old school. Obviously that's why it's not used quite as much. But there's still a purpose for every personnel grouping that we had on that table. We're not going through every single one of them because 94% of it is within 4. But there's uses for everything, and you still occasionally, and you like to see the old coaches go by Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Sean Payton. They always go through just, maybe something they saw from a clip from the 70s. Let's put it on the field. Let's just use it once or twice.
Next time we do this, I want to see a 50 personnel or a 5 personnel clip. Let's see if we can find that in our database.
I got to find it. Maybe I was thinking about Cam.
Go back a long way,
Cam Newton
probably.
and the Panthers used to do some weird stuff on the goal line too with every tight end on their roster out there. So it also helps too, like we mentioned with the Ravens, when you have a quarterback that can run and then you get into options and everything like that, accounting for blockers. So I've talked about the numbers game before. When you're able to run an option, when you're Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, you can change the numbers game because one of those guys belongs to the quarterback, right? Some other, Matt Stafford, that might not be the case. Or a Tom Brady, it's a little bit different. You might have to just leave someone unblocked. But it's all about, with the personnel groupings, a numbers game. Especially in the run game. Can you match it up? Are we even? Are we hat on hat? If you can do that, and then from there you're having success and you can dictate what the defensive personnel grouping is, that's when you start to have a really explosive offense.
So there you have it. We just broke down all the personnel groupings, or most of them, that you'll see on Saturdays and Sundays in college football and the NFL. So the next time you hear 11 personnel or 12 personnel on TV, doesn't mean how many players you have on the field. It means how many running backs and tight ends you have on the field.